In this video of Math with McComish, we're going to talk about theoretical probability. Theoretical probability is what should happen when an experiment is carried out. So it's not always what does actually happen. If you watched my experimental probability video, you saw on the very first experiment that we got 4 out of 6 tails and 2 out of 6 heads. That's not necessarily what should have happened, but that is what happened. Theoretical probability is what should happen. So to calculate it, we take the number of favorable outcomes and we put it over top or divide by the number of total possible outcomes. Okay, this is theoretically. This isn't actually performing an experiment. This is what should happen. So, example, on a 6-sided die, what is the probability of rolling a 2? Well, there's only one way of rolling a 2, so that goes on top. That's a favorable outcome over the total number of possible outcomes, which on a 6-sided die, there's 6 options. So your probability for rolling a 2 is 1 out of 6. You have a 1 in 6 chance of getting a 2. That's your theoretical probability. Let's say if you flip a coin, what's the probability of getting a tails? Well, there's only one way of getting a tails, and there's only 2 options. So it'd be 1 out of 2, which you could also say is 0.5, which is a 50% chance. So theoretically, you should have a 50-50 chance of getting a tails. Let's say you flip the coin 50 times. How many times should you get tails then? Well, if you got 50-50 chance, you should get tails 25 out of 50 times. Now, if you were to do that experiment, you might not get that. You might, but that's theoretically what should happen. Let's look at the theoretical probability of spinning a blue on this spinner. Well, there are 3 blue sections, and there is a total of 8 sections in all. So your probability of spinning a blue is 3 out of 8, or as a decimal would be 0.375 or 37.5% chance of getting a blue. Now that is the highest chance on this spinner of any color to get, but it's still only 37.5% chance, theoretically. Let's say you have a bag of marbles. There's 7 blue, 5 red, and 8 green. What's the theoretical probability of selecting each color? Well, let's say of blue first. So there are 7 blue out of a total. Now, we have to add up all the marbles to see what our total is. So 7 plus 5 is 12, plus 8 is 20. So there are 20 marbles in total. So you have a 7 out of 20 chance of selecting a blue. If we were to talk about the probability of a red, there are 5 red, still only 20 in total. So your probability is 5 out of 20. And 8 green, so it's 8 out of 20. And I could convert these to decimals and percentages as well if need be. So that is the theoretical probability. Sometimes you have to figure out what the total number of outcomes is by listing the possibilities. Okay, so let's say we flipped the coin and rolled a 6-sided die. So we put these 2 together. Okay, so let's list all the possible outcomes. Well, we could get a head and let's say a 1. You could get a head and a 2, head and a 3, head and a 4, head and a 5, head and a 6, or you could get a tail and a 1, tail and a 2, tail and a 3, tail or a 4, tail or a 5, tail or a 6. So these are all the possible outcomes in this experiment, and that makes 12 possibilities. So it would be out of 12. It could ask you a question like, what is the theoretical probability of flipping a heads and rolling a 1, 2, or 3? So a head or a 1, 2, or 3 are this many possibilities out of the total of 12. So that would be 3 chances of getting a head and a 1 or a 2 or a 3 out of a total of 12 possible outcomes. So that is my theoretical probability. If I was to change that into a decimal and percent, it would be 0.25 or 25% chance of doing that. So that is theoretical probability.